I found out about the tweet that I'm going to cover in this video from a Mike Hollow video. So it's a good thing I managed to see that, or else I might not have learned about it. I think one of the issues is that Alanah Pearce has so many terrible takes and bad opinions that a lot of them just kind of slip through the cracks and they go under the radar. This one in particular, I think, is worthy of some coverage because it'll be kind of fun content to talk about, of course, but it's a bit of a window into the mind of a person who is so subsumed in corporate filleting and who seems to be so anti-consumer consistently in her positions regarding the gaming industry. The tweet in question being spawned from a short interaction between her and some guy who said, "Seeing so much glee about canceled projects is just gross." And then she says, the tweet we're going to be covering today, "People who want games to fail are tourists. Fake gamers, the lot of them." There's a number of things that I want to say regarding this tweet, because she manages, I guess it's a special talent of hers. Some people do have this talent to pack a whole bunch of stupidity density, I think is a good way to describe it. Some people are able to pack a whole bunch of stupid into not that much of a space. In a way, it is impressive. I think the more concerning element of this kind of an attitude isn't necessarily the stupidity aspect of it. It's that it shows the mindset of this person isn't in a good spot when it comes to the continual health of an industry, of a hobby. This isn't the attitude you want to have in people who are in a hobby. I jotted down some thoughts. I shall now talk about them. My first thing that I think sort of maybe what should be addressed first is, what's a real gamer? A lot of different people have different considerations and definitions for what they'd consider a real gamer. Not something I typically talk about. We don't talk about that sort of thing too much on EFAP, the podcast I run with my friends that all of you should be subscribed to, because it's not necessarily a very fruitful endeavor to discuss that sort of thing. Typically, it's just fine if you take someone at their word that they say that they are a fan of things. That leads into much more interesting discussions that can be more fruitful. If someone is Joker and Joker 2, Folie à Dieu, if someone said that they love both of those, like, I believe you when you say you love both of those movies, freak, but I'm wondering, because the first is such an obvious repudiation, and it's such an obvious slap in the face to the first one, and you love the first one, how exactly is it that you love the both of them as a pair? Again, I believe that you do, but I'm confused as to why. And getting to that heart of a matter, getting into the whys, that's more important, and that's more interesting. When it comes to someone in a hobby, being a real hobbyist, whatever it may be, I don't think it's too complicated. When it comes to being a real gamer, I would probably just say, if you play a lot of video games, if you play a decent amount of video games, if you play video games enough to where you think about them often, or you look forwards to playing them more, I would say that that makes you a real gamer, I suppose. I'm not that interested in really nailing down what is or isn't a real gamer. I definitely draw lines, though. I wouldn't say that someone who only plays mobile games is a real gamer. To hell with that. Mobile games are the scourge of the industry. I think one good way of looking at it would be, a real gamer is someone who has an emotional or well, this will tie into the third point, but so we'll put a pin in that for later. A real gamer is someone who has sort of a kind of deep investment, or investment of a kind, not just a financial one, but a hobby enthusiasm, an enthusiasm investment. I'll call it that, an enthusiasm investment in the industry or in the hobby. So I wouldn't say that someone's desire to have bad games canceled, and I suppose it's good sort of background info that these tweets, this tweet exchange was made on January the 16th. I think it was made a number of hours after the announcement from Sony that 2 of their projects were canceled, namely one of them being a live service God of War game that was being developed. It got canceled. And there was much rejoicing from many people for obvious reasons. Many of them probably saying the same thing. What the hell? They were going to make a live service God of War game. What would that even look like? The thing that's famed and beloved for being a very well-written, story-driven, single-player, I guess action RPG would be a way to describe it. There's so many examples of games that go down the proverbial crapper because of live service creeping in. The gameplay I put in the background as visuals for the video, it's Apex Legends. I like the game, barely spend any money on it because I think that the live service elements and a lot of the microtransactions and stuff are ridiculous and silly. So I just play the game with friends, and that's kind of it. I don't support it financially. To hell with that. What makes a gamer a good gamer, I think, is the way that they engage with the games themselves a lot of the time. Being a good sport, not cheating, following the rules. I think those things make for a good gamer. I think a good gamer is someone who appreciates the variety that games can offer. Not necessarily that they play a variety of games, but appreciates the idea that there is a wide variety of games for a wide variety of people and a wide variety of tastes. I think that a good gamer makes responsible and healthy financial decisions when it comes to the general market and the hobby. I think that people who engage with video games financially in terms of making really bad purchasing decisions for microtransactions, season passes, who will buy things that used to be content that came for free, who will just buy stuff even if they don't play the game, or who are maybe a bit too skin and goody obsessed in games. Probably not a good attitude to have, not a good set of behaviors for being a gamer. We can get into a long discussion. I tend to wax on and on and on, but we can get into a long discussion potentially on what makes a gamer good or not. What's the distinguishing factor between a good gamer and a bad gamer? And where Alanah and I very strongly disagree, and it seems like most people disagree for pretty obvious reasons, is for her, the differentiation between a good gamer and a bad gamer is that a good gamer is one who doesn't want games to get canceled. If you're a good gamer, in her mind, you want more projects, you want more people working, and you want to have more and more and more things getting made, getting developed, regardless of context. In her mind, a good gardener is one that never prunes, only grows. I think that's a decent segue into my second bullet point of thoughts that I had when I read this tweet, which is that Alanah seems to think that more games is better. More people in the industry is better. More cash flow is better regardless of context. This is a regular sentiment that I see from her whenever she opens her trap, whenever I cover her, whenever I see things about her. This seems to be a consistent trend that she goes into. More gaming stuff is just better, period. And it makes sense when you take into account where she came from. I think she, like a month ago, left, but for years and years, she worked at Sony. Sony. Yeah. Sony. She just wants the industry to be bigger. She wants there to be more game devs, regardless of context, it seems. And that's just something I vehemently disagree with. I want the industry, in general, to grow. I want more people to be engaged with a hobby in general. I think that it's, for the most part, it's better that an industry grows and is healthy and expands and has the ability to have more studios working and produce different kinds of games that can offer different kinds of experiences and try new things. I don't want the industry to collapse, because for all the problems that many, many AAA games have, I don't want AAA games to go away. That is an experience that costs a lot of money in order to create, and those experiences will simply not exist if there's not investment in publishers that can afford to foot those kinds of bills. Sure, there's a lot of bad AAA games, but there's a lot of good ones too. Recently, for whatever reason, on a whim, I decided to play Cyberpunk 2077. About a couple weeks ago, I started to play it again, and I haven't played it since its release. And now that it's been getting extremely good reception, booted it up again to try it, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. And one of the things that I have noticed in that game is that these kinds of games, they just wouldn't exist if we didn't have if we didn't have an industry that was capable of supporting AAA games and their finances, their publishing, That experience just wouldn't exist. And I want those kinds of experiences to exist. I want a good Assassin's Creed game. I want a good Cyberpunk game, you know? I fear I've gone into another tangent randomly. I don't script these Dogbyte videos. I do bullet points, maybe, if you're lucky. For Alanah Pearce, it doesn't matter if these companies and these studios and these teams of people are hard at work destroying franchises or churning out terrible content and bad games and greedy season passes or horrifically overpriced microtransactions. For her, it seems to be that the more, the better. More equals better. Gluttony, growth, expansion, these are things that should be hoped for and worked for. Shrinkage of any kind, pruning of any kind is bad. And with that in mind, I think that sort of leads into this third point that I had. Why does she have this attitude? I think there's two reasons. One, it's because she has a very deep connection with the industry that she was a part of for a long time and probably will continue to be a part of, at least in some capacity. She still knows a lot of people in the industry. She has a lot of friends, a lot of connections from those times. She's compromised, quite frankly. But this tweet from her, it seems to show a lack of respect for what a franchise or an IP represents, or what it stands for, or what it means to people. Halo and Star Trek and Star Wars and God of War, and you can name a million different franchises and a million different IPs. They're more than just a label on a video game box. Unfortunately, some of them have just become that, in a sense. Star Wars is an excellent example of this. Star Wars used to mean things. Star Wars used to be about something. And now look at it. When people look at what they loved about Star Wars, and Star Trek is the same way. You know, when people talk about, you know, the Next Generation and Voyager and the original series, things of that nature. It's become so different from when it used to be. Something was lost. And it wasn't necessarily just the quality of it. There was something else that's a little bit less concrete. There's a sort of spirit, in a sense, that these franchises have. The thematics and the kinds of things that these stories and franchises can say. And a lot of the times these franchises can be vehicles, not just to churn out money and make a profit or to sell people things, but they can be a vehicle that houses good stories, well-written characters, meaningful virtue encouragement. When I think about Halo 2, I don't necessarily think about the game and how much money the game made and the Halo franchise. I think about me being a young guy who was still relatively new to video games at the time, didn't play them all that much, didn't have the opportunity to, but was sort of swept away by the idea of this competitive environment, this faraway world, this sci-fi setting. I remember the smells of my friends' houses when I went to their house and we played co-op on the TV, on the Xbox. I remember the friends themselves that I used to have. I have memories of these experiences that Halo 2, at least for me, is sort of intrinsically linked to. I remember the feelings that I had when I play the game, the fun that I had, not just in terms of the thrill of playing the game itself and enjoying that, but then just reminiscing on those experiences afterwards. Halo 2, for me, is more than just buttons and codes. It's a series of memories. It's something I can look back on very fondly because it was a high-quality experience that I shared with people that I enjoyed being around. This long diatribe, essentially, I suppose could be condensed down into the idea that the game is... that maybe a game is more than a game. And maybe if you're an industry shill simpleton like Alanah Pearce, you don't understand that, or you can't understand that. Or maybe you engage with games in a completely different way than many of us do. Many of us real gamers do. A lot of the times when gamers get happy, when they're overjoyed, when they're thrilled, when they celebrate, when they get news of the cancellation of a project, it's because they see that project as being ultimately very damaging to the industry, or more specifically, to the IP that project would have been attached to. For instance, the planned and now canceled God of War live service game. You go to the God of War Reddits and you talk to fans of God of War as a series, of which I would be one to a degree. Good! I'm glad it got canceled. I don't want a God of War game that's a live service game. We've seen too many games go down that route. It's not good. I don't want that to be God of War's fate as a series. I want it to keep doing what it is doing. Maybe you don't understand this, but just because someone likes a franchise, that doesn't mean that they want to see its corpse continued to be dragged around. They don't want to see the Skinwalker version of what that IP used to be. People don't like to see the characters or the themes or the mechanics of things that they enjoy be butchered. They don't want to see franchises that they love and enjoy and have grown up with, or that they put a lot of time and have investment in. They don't want to see those things just become cash grabs for corporations. They want to see these games made with passion and love. They want to see them either stay true to what they are or be advanced in interesting ways by developers and creators who care about taking those franchises in healthy directions. Or they're fine with having someone say, the story's done. It's over. There's nothing else that we want to do with this franchise. It's done. We want to move to something else. We don't want to just keep pumping out games forever with this name on it. There's a lot of respect I have for creators who say, the story has reached its end. The game has done what we sought out to do with it, and now we're moving on. We're not just going to keep milking and milking and milking forever. It's okay for things to end. To me, Halo, it's 5 games. Combat Evolved, 2, 3, ODST, and Reach. That's what Halo is to me, and it ends there. There's no more after that. Halo 4, Halo 5, Infinite, nah. These are pretenders, skinwalkers, interlopers. That's why the knee-jerk reaction to so many new things is negative. They're making another Star Trek show. They're making another Star Wars movie. They're making another da-da-da. And what do? Oh, fuck. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. It's going to suck. I'm just going to go back and watch the old good stuff. I'm just going to go back and play the old good games before things went to hell. The reason we want a lot of these games and projects to fail is because it needs to send a message to the industry that not everything needs to be made. There are bad games. There are bad projects. There are bad mixes and matches of microtransactions and business models and genres. Dragon Age Veilguard came out recently. Reviewed poorly. Looks like a terrible, terrible game. It looks like a joke. Looks like an actual joke. And I love Dragon Age Origins. A lot of fond memories of that game. And when I see what Dragon Age has become as a series, breaks my heart. I would rather a Dragon Age game fail than exist as a terrible game. Exist in insult to what came before it. I'm not afraid of innovation. I'm not afraid of them trying new things. But there is a point where something that you love just becomes something terrible, something different, when it loses what made it special. And you got to go back to remembering the good old days. To return to this original tweet for a moment, what does it say about the state of the industry that gamers can be so happy, so overwhelmingly thrilled to hear that a project was canceled and will never see the light of day? What does that say about your stewardship of these franchises? What does it say about the quality of your projects? You would think that this would stir in you some introspection, if such a thing was possible. Sometimes games need to fail so it sends a message. Sometimes games need to fail so things can move in the right direction. Of course, when games fail sometimes, it sends the wrong message. Sometimes when a game fails, it's for really unfortunate reasons. Titanfall 2 is a good example. Tragedy what happened to that game. But its failure wasn't one of a creative decision or bad business practices. Its failure was owed to a horrifically bad release date, for the most part. It's a cathartic feeling sometimes as well when you see a bad game that takes a franchise in a terrible direction. To see that fail, oh, it feels good. This is what you get for spending millions and millions on a stupid project that was foolish to begin in the first place, that isn't what we wanted. Because hopefully, when a big company sees what fails, it'll encourage them to take things in a direction that it needs to go. But at this point, I'm just repeating myself. This is what happens when I chat shit off script. Alanah Pearce won't understand these things. I don't think she can at this point. She's an industry shill. Her engagement with gaming as an industry and with games as an art form and as an experience, it doesn't seem to be the way that you and I might engage with those things. She can call us tourists, but we're the ones with the real investment. We're not the ones visiting these franchises that we love and respect and have memories of. We're the ones who call them home. She's the one poking her head in. And the sooner she's gone, the better.